All right, there we go. So, hello, Active Terps. I'm here with another one of our professional staff members for University of Recreation and Wellness, better known as RecWell. Obviously, with all that's kind of going on in society today, we wanted to make our stance as an organization very clear. So the two of us are here to just talk through what's happening, what that means for RecWell, and then how we can be a part of this larger conversation and this larger movement that we're seeing, not just on our campus, not just in our country, but globally. So my name is Luke Verdi. I'm the coordinator of student personnel. Within my role, I oversee student employment, so that recruiting process during the student employee life cycle, and then just being that advocate and trying to be there in support of our students as best as possible.
Hey everyone, my name is Montrell. I'm also a professional staff member here at RecWell. I'm the coordinator of Intramural Sports, so a lot of what I do is obviously related to intramurals. I take a large part in training all of our intramural officials and getting them ready to officiate the games that you all play day in and day out, or at least when we used to be back in person. But intramurals are going to look a little bit different. And part of what I want to do is, especially with intramurals, we all use sports as an outlet to kind of get away from the different stressors that we might come to face with on a daily basis. But we really are keen of that, and we want to make sure that regardless of your skill level, regardless of your background, everybody has a place that they can compete and still have fun. We don't try and gatekeep anybody from being able to play a sport, whether they've played it for 13 years of their life or they're just stepping onto a basketball court for the first time. So it's really important for us to make sure that everybody feels seen and they feel in a space that's safe for them when they come out into our spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Montrell said, that piece of inclusivity and the celebration and the welcoming of all people, regardless of lived experience or background, is the absolute most important thing to our organization. And hopefully you feel that anytime you're using our programs, our facilities, or our services. And as an organization, I want to make it really clear our mission, right, is to make sure that our campus is well and thriving. We recognize we can't do that when so many in our UMD community are hurting right now. And so it's important for us to do what we can for our students, and we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. But we want to make sure that we're there in support of you all as members of our greater RecWell family. So last year, we had the Dean of the School of Public Health, Dr. Boris Lushniak, come and speak to all of our students at what's called our all-staff kickoff event, right? So our all-staff kickoff event is in place to kind of start the tone, really to inspire our students ahead of the beginning of an academic year. So outside of this year, it's been a mainstay in our training process for our students. We get everyone together in one really large space. And again, we talk to a topic that we think will really set the tone and set the energy for the academic year. So last year, when Dr. Lushniak came to be our keynote speaker, he challenged us all, and when I say us, I mean our student staff, our part-time staff, our full-time staff, everyone. He challenged us to serve as public health leaders, right? Public health leaders. He wanted us to be the ones that modeled the way on campus. He wanted us to be the ones that encouraged others when they were maybe struggling in that journey as a public health leader or as someone engaging in public health. And I think right now we want to continue to model that way on campus as it pertains to COVID, but really we want to make sure that we're leading the way and modeling the way when it comes to speaking up against racism, social injustice, and systemic oppression.
Now, when we talk about these kind of topics, we know that it's not something that's going to be easy to talk about, but the more that we run away from this topic, the bigger that it becomes. When we tackle things such as systemic oppression, systemic racism, and things that have been plaguing our country for the past 400 some years, these are topics that we have to take head on. We can't beat around the bush. Because there are different realities that people in our country experience. Even though we like to think that we're one people and one nation under one flag, we all live in very different realities. And as a Black man, that largely in part has to do with interactions with law enforcement. There are a lot of households where Black parents have to have talks with their children really before they can conceptualize what it means or what law enforcement is, and to really watch the way that you interact with them. You want to be yes sir, no sir, very respectful towards them, but really in an instance that you're trying to protect your own life and protect the life of the people that you're with. We've always been taught to never give a cop a reason, and really just to comply and show all signs of compliance and to show no signs of restraint. But we've seen time and time again that somebody can be doing the right thing and it still ends up in somebody losing their life at the hands of law enforcement. So I just want to share on something that's personal for me. So I think it was maybe a year or two ago while I was in grad school. It was just a regular night out after the bars, and I was the DD for this night. And it was maybe 2 or 3 o'clock. I dropped everybody off, went to go get something to eat before I went home, and just driving down the road, and then I see the red and blue lights behind me, and instantly there's just this rush that went over my body. And first thing I do, and it's just standard procedure for me when I get pulled over, before the cop even gets a chance to come to the car, I get my license and registrations, roll down the windows to my car, put both my hands on the steering wheel just so that they know I'm not reaching for anything. I'm not posing myself as a threat. Everything is yes, sir, no, sir. Thankfully, I made it out of that interaction. There are good cops out here. There are cops that are just there to do their job. But just the innate fear that comes over your body. And I just remember driving home after I got pulled over that night and just thinking I could have been dead if I would have done something wrong, if I would have reached for something, or if I would have given the wrong type of tone to the officer, that could result in me losing my life. And for some of you who might be watching this, you might think that that's over exaggerated, but I'm secure in who I am as a person. I like to think that I don't fear easily, but it's just something about driving past a cop car or seeing the lights behind you that specifically as a Black person, it just does something to you and just gives you a rush of emotions that it's hard to contain. And it's really just something that has been ingrained into our society, into our culture. It's just the overall fear for law enforcement.
Yeah, and like Montrell said, that unfortunately that messaging starts really, really young in a lot of Black households. So for me personally, growing up, my parents were separated. I grew up with my father, a white man at first, until he moved away when I was about 12 or 13 years old. From that point on, I moved in with my mother, a Black woman, and we had a lot of conversations that I wasn't necessarily exposed to or privy to when I was with my father, right? It was a lot of conversations, like Montrell said, about the language that you choose with people in positions of authority, and especially law enforcement officers, how you conduct yourself, what to do, what not to do, right? And the most important part, what not to do. And I asked lots of questions, right? At 12 or 13 years old, I was understanding what my mother was saying, but I wasn't quite sure, I guess, how she could be coming from this position with something I didn't experience personally, or at least not yet, right? But it was always, that messaging always bled down to, I want you to come back home to me at the end of the night. I want to make sure that you make it back home, regardless of what happens. And that's the single most important thing, right? And so for me, my first experience with law enforcement, I was in high school. I think I was a junior at the time. I was leaving a friend's house, didn't have my license at the time, so I was waiting for a ride from one of my friend's parents. Right, and so we're standing outside our friend's home. A couple minutes pass by. Suddenly, a police officer pulls up, and just like that, another 3 police officers pull up. So my friend and I, again, we're about 15 years old at the time. We're kind of looking at each other, really confused and really unsure of what's getting ready to happen. Next thing you know, we're being detained. We're there in police custody. The only crime that we had committed was waiting for a ride, right? I'm inquisitive. I asked a lot of questions. Hey, sir, could you tell me what's going on? Hey, sir, could you tell me what I'm being held for? Hey, sir, could you tell me how long this is going to need to happen? Right? No answer, no response, no justification, as if there needed to be one, no explanation. And the next thing you know, some time has passed, and suddenly the officer says, well, I'm surprised at how articulate the two of you are and how well spoken you two are. So have a nice night, and leaves. And how I'm stuck there, right? All these emotions, all these feelings, all these thoughts. I don't even know how to process it, right? I have this conversation with my mom. Hey, here's what happened. My mom burst into tears. My mom is can't be consoled, and I don't really know how we navigate that. And it never got better, right? I mean, we had more conversations, more productive conversations about what to do and what not to do, like I alluded to, but the experiences that I've had, similar to that, have continued throughout my life. And so, like Montrell said, it's one of those things that, because you might not be directly impacted by it, or you might not directly experience it, doesn't mean it's not happening, and it doesn't mean it's not happening to your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, your peers, members of your family. It's happening across this country, and I've said it to our staff, and we'll get into those messages that we've delivered. Black people haven't felt safe in this country, and they still continue to not feel safe in this country.
And I think Luke just hit the nail on the head. Is just being able to feel safe and feel secure. Police is just one thing, but when we think of police, we think of to protect and preserve, or protect and serve. But who are they protecting and serving? We have communities where people like me are over policed, and not given the benefit of the doubt, whereas somebody who is white or in some of those neighborhoods, they are really seen as part of the community and really wanting to be somebody that is there to protect and serve. And that's the ultimate duty of what a police officer should be. But we know that isn't the case. We have seen a lot of really way too many lives have been lost or affected negatively due to police brutality, to where we feel as though, enough is enough. I mean, I feel like people have been feeling like this way for a long time, but we've kind of gotten to a point where we feel as though that we can't stand idle. We have to do something or say something to affect change. And we realize that, this point in everybody's life is extremely pivotal, whether you're at an institution or not. But you've made the choice to further your education, to put yourself in a position or an environment of higher learning. And that's what we're here to do, is to kind of get those cogs turning and being able to turn over those leaves that might have been unturned through the experiences that you might have had at home, or in your respective neighborhoods where you grew up and went to school at. We're putting ourselves out into society. We're putting ourselves into a larger spectrum of the world. And when we do that, we're going to interact with a lot of different people, a lot of people that are different from us. So it's going to be important for us to understand why people feel the way that they do, rather than trying to negate or dismiss how somebody feels. Really listen, really try and understand the pain and the angst that they feel, because this isn't something that people make up. It's been well documented throughout the history of our country and really the globe, on the way that people look at people of darker skin and really people of or African Americans in our country and Black people in our country. So it's really, really important for us to do what we can from our relative positions of power. I mean, I'm just a coordinator. I just started working here last year, but this is something that I was not able to do last year. I didn't have access to the resources, the voices, and the ears that I have access to now. So I'm going to make sure that I do my part to make sure that I'm speaking out and helping empower others to either use their voice, or for them to educate themselves, or to start to really listen and pay attention to these issues when they, like Luke said, they may not affect you. They may not directly affect anybody that you affiliate yourself with, but there are ways that systemic racism has infiltrated its way into our society, and the way that our society was built on top of it, to where the system was built for some of us, but it definitely was not built for all of us.
Yeah, and like Montrell said, I mean, the key is using, and this is something that, again, I haven't been serving in my role for very long, a little over 2 years now as a full-time professional, but for me, it is a topic I'm extremely passionate about and very vocal about, but it's also something I feel this innate level of obligation and responsibility to make sure that I'm educating our students where possible, educating our community where possible, but also supporting both of those parties where possible. So, in trying to make sure that are getting our students to think, right? And I'm not telling them how to think, but I just want them to begin that thinking, and then in that process. It's using my platform to speak out when we see the shooting of Jacob Blake, when we see the murder of George Floyd, or the murder of Breonna Taylor, or the far too many Black people that have been, brutalized again by the people who are here to protect and to serve. Right? It's using my platform to make sure that I'm shedding light when these incidents happen. And it's for me, it's also a big piece to say, you know, I had some great role models during my time as an undergraduate student. Right? I had people who inspired me to live out my truths and my values and my beliefs. And if I can do that for our students, and if I can do that for our greater community, it's something that I want to do. Right? I want them to know that it's okay to speak out and to have your voice heard when something so gravely wrong, right? A human rights issue like we're witnessing is going on. I want them to use the platform and the power that they have to be able to speak up against that.
You might be thinking, this topic doesn't affect me. I've never seen or experienced what it means to be oppressed or what it means to be a victim of police brutality. Um, but there are things that you can do. There are actionable items that you can take to make sure that you're more privy on this topic and make sure that you can be a proponent of change. And I think the first step is really just education. With all the recent events that have broken out since the tragic passing of George Floyd, there's been books, podcasts, and anything that you can name that helps you get more informed on this topic and more educated, just so that you're able to really internalize and process. Why are people so upset? Why do we have people that are burning down buildings? Why do we have people that have been out in the streets peacefully protesting for essentially the whole summer? This has been something that has not gone away, and it's not going to go away. So really starting to educate yourself, find the ways in which you best receive information, and try and channel that to get yourself more aware of the things that are going on around you. And additionally, I think one of the biggest things is being able to vote. We can complain until we're blue in the face, but if we don't take the power that's instilled within us as American citizens to affect change, then all that talk is for nothing. So educate yourself, register to vote, make sure that you vote. Do things that are going to make a change, even when you don't think that they do or think that they might. Your attempt or your success is going to inspire somebody else to then make that change as well.
Yeah, and another actionable step you can take is to create space for the people that are hurting very gravely right now. And I would wager a lot of you probably can identify those individuals in your life, right? Even extending out to them and saying, "Hey, I'm here to listen. Hey, I'm here in support of you," right? Hopefully it's someone who you built rapport with and you feel comfortable in doing that. But I can't tell you as someone who has been in not the best space in lieu of what's going on in this world, I can't tell you how helpful it's been for me to know I have so many colleagues, so many friends, and so many peers who are there just to listen and are there just to be present in the moment when I'm hurting or I'm trying to be vulnerable or I'm trying to process something that's really difficult for me to process. So create that space for other people and be vocal, right? I understand that we all have different levels of comfortability and levels of confidence as it pertains to maybe conflict, right? Or having those difficult conversations or that difficult dialogue, even if it's with a family member, right? That adds a whole nother layer to it where maybe you have to have that hard conversation. But you have no idea how empowering it feels when you're speaking and standing firmly in your values and your beliefs. Again, I recognize that is a really hard ask. I recognize that is very, very difficult to do, especially depending on the offending party. But you can rest assured knowing that you are standing in support of people who mean so much to you, right? Even if it's not something that's widely publicized or something that is made apparent in front of them, knowing that you're doing that or making that commitment is everything to so many people. Knowing that you're a part of this larger movement and of this larger initiative that's taking place in front of us.
So we wanted to really make sure that we gave items for people that are specifically within RecWell, to really try and tackle, in ways that you can get involved in continuing this conversation, in ways that you can be a proponent of change and really start to be the change that you want to see in the world. I know that something that our professional staff has done. We continually have we have our diversity, equity, and inclusion task force that is centered around making these topics of conversation and trying to figure out the different ways that we can impact change. And I know that's something that is something of value to us. Additionally, we had a Justice in June series in which we highlighted different ways in which we can be a proponent of change and find out different ways that we can be a positive influence on others in terms of being able to hold each other accountable and being able to speak up when we know that it's necessary and being able to do the right thing.
Yeah, to further those points, we've had some more initiatives that we've worked on. So, like Montrell alluded to, a lot of it has been our starting block, so to say, has been to educate ourselves. Even as someone who feels like they're fairly well versed in this topic and in this arena, it's still important for me to put that ego aside and to learn and to consume and to listen, right? Listen, I want to underscore that a lot as much as possible to continue to build context and to continue to build understanding. So another thing that we've been doing is we've been working with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion here on campus as well. We've done a couple sessions with them at this point, so that way they can continue to educate our staffs about how we may dismantle and tackle systemic oppression, especially in ways where it could be pervasive and even almost invisible to an extent within our organization. So highlighting things that we could do better, so that way more and more identities can feel included, within their workplace culture. And then ultimately that will resonate with our students, right? So we've talked a lot about this whole, top-down approach. Here's what we're doing as managers to enact change or help to better include our students. But we also want to make that commitment where we're getting that bottom-up approach, right? Our students who hold so many different identities from the ones that Montrell and myself and our other staff members hold, are students who are really at the forefront of a lot of these changes in this social justice movement that's taking place on campus, right? On campus and globally, right? These people that are a part of these conversations and a part of the day-to-day in a way that, we might also be in it, but they're there doing even more, or in addition to what we're doing as well. So we are currently working, and myself and Montrell and another member of our professional staff will serve as advisors to our inaugural Social and Racial Justice Student Advisory Board. And so we want to know directly from our students, what can we do better? We want to work with these students to identify opportunities for programming and education for our greater student body, as well as the rest of the RecWell student staff members. So that's another really cool thing that we're going to do. We're going to hopefully be able to ignite the passion and the energy of young people who want to be a part of this greater conversation and want to be able to share this conversation with their peers and with others as well.
When we talk about social and racial justice, Luke touched on it earlier, but everybody's going to be different along their respective journey. For some people, their first instinct might be to jump on the front lines of a protest. We have some people who might dive headfirst into a book. We have people that might find what charitable organizations they can donate to. Whatever that looks like for you, take that first step, because I think we've reached a point of where we can't not do anything. If this is something that you see as a human rights issue and not a Black issue, then this should be something that you're trying to fight towards. And like I said, it doesn't mean that you have to be on the front lines of a protest, but it means that you're doing something. That means holding each other accountable. That means calling out people when they make an offhand comment, or being able to point out when somebody might be uneducated on a topic and being that voice of reason for them. And everybody has different levels of comfort when it comes to doing this, but we just really want to encourage and inspire everybody to do something. You don't really know what you're capable of until you do it. And really, when you're in the space of being at a institution of higher ed, it's all about going out of your comfort zone. And we shouldn't just limit that to our social engagements or our academic achievements. We really want to try and mold people to be just good people that are going to help benefit society in a positive manner. And we know for a fact that this is something that you truly care about, and something that is going to help lead us to a better society. You can find some way in which you can help affect change. It's really just on you, yourself, and the people that you surround yourself with to find out what's going to work best for you, and the people you surround yourself with to be able to affect change.
So as we continue to adjust to this new normal, right, and we continue to plan and to hopefully work to mitigate the effects of COVID, right, let's make sure that we're putting that same level of effort and energy into fighting this other pandemic, social or systemic oppression, racial injustice, and the marginalization and disenfranchisement of other groups, but especially Black people in this country.